Hey, Disney cruisers, and welcome back to the DCL community, where we are here to help you plan, prepare for, and get excited for your Disney cruise. You guys know me, I'm Rebecca, your host and admin of the DCL community. And today we are doing a deep dive into all things cruising with Disney from San Diego, a port that doesn't get enough recognition with how popular it seems these West Coast cruises are. So I am so excited to be doing a deep dive on this today. As you are coming in, please let us know where you're watching from, if you're from the West Coast or if you're someone on the East Coast thinking about traveling west. But Megan, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name's Megan Farwell. I am a travel agent with Waves and Wonder Travel. And I just love Disney Cruise Line, obviously, or I wouldn't be here. I've got 3 kids. I had to update this on this presentation because my oldest and my youngest their birthdays within a week of each other. So my oldest just turned 13 and my youngest just turned 6. So this is the first presentation I've done since they aged up. And then I also have a 10-year-old in the middle. We've been on all the Disney ships, sailed on most of the itineraries, and DCL is by far my favorite way to vacation, especially with kids. I just think it's so relaxing and as stress-free as possible as you can get with kids. So that's why I love to plan cruises for others as well, because I just think it's a great way to vacation.
I love that little asterisk in there. As stressful as it can be with kids,
Right.
because you are a mom and you know that sometimes there's just no controlling the meltdown.
There's always going to be a little stress when you have kids. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes. Heck, when you're married, forget about it, right?
Anytime you travel, for sure. Yeah.
Yes, but I know that a lot of people who are from the West Coast, they want these cruises all year round, and Disney doesn't as we're going to get into, doesn't necessarily sail from the West Coast all year. So if this is something you're thinking about, it's important to you, Megan's actually traveled on a bunch of other cruise lines with her family too. So she can help you decide which cruise line is best. Is it best to wait for Disney, or should you maybe consider another cruise line? So that is a link to her page on the DCL community site, and you can see her email and phone number up on the screen as well. She is so incredibly responsive. And if you didn't know this, her planning services are actually free for you to utilize. So reach out to her, let her help you in all of your planning. And we have some friends from Seattle, San Diego, a couple of friends from Washington, North California, somebody from Nevada. Hello. So fun. Well, thank you guys for joining. As we're going through, if you guys have any questions, let us know. We will do our best to get to them. But let's start off with why choose San Diego as a cruise port.
So I love San Diego because the port itself is a little bit smaller. There's only 2 cruise terminals at the port. It's very easy access from the airport, from the SoCal area. Even if you're flying in from somewhere, the airport is a great airport. There's lots of great pre and post cruise vacation options. So if you want to add on time before or after, you have tons of great options in that regard. And they also just offer a little bit more unique itineraries. Like it's not just, another Bahamian cruise. And in particular, I love the Pacific coast. It's just very different from the Atlantic coast or the Gulf Coast. Like the ocean's just different. It's rockier. It's just beautiful. So it's just a little bit more unique and it's something different. So that's why some of the reasons I love San Diego port.
Yes, and I haven't been to San Diego. The only time I've cruised with Disney out of California was way back when they sailed out of LA.
Mm-hmm.
So I have heard such great things about San Diego as a city. Of course, the weather always seems to be perfect. So I know that this is definitely a place on my bucket list, but I love that you have some of these itineraries on here.
Yeah, so I pulled these directly from the Disney Cruise Line website. This is everything that's offered in 2025 and 2026. So from San Diego, they'll be doing 3, 4, and then a few 7-night sailings, mostly on the Wonder, but they did add the Magic for 2026. So that's, I put new, but they did have the Magic back in the day, like a few years ago, and then they took it away, and now they're bringing it back. So you will have options for the Wonder or the Magic, and they only cruise from San Diego in March, April, and May as of right now. So there is the possibility, I think, with all the new ships coming out, that they'll add more itineraries from San Diego. I think a lot of people are hoping for that, but we'll see. So some of the port stops you could have, Ensenada is a big one, Catalina Island, and then this 4-night Pacific Coast cruise, that's a one-way. So you start in San Diego, You end in Vancouver, and there are no port stops on that one. It's just all sea days, which that in itself is an interesting itinerary because a lot of people just love the sea days. They don't want to stop in any ports at all. So I think a lot of people would love that one. And then the 7-night cruises they offer are Mexican Rivieras, and those stop in Puerto Vallarta. Oops, I misspelled that. Cabo San Lucas and Ensenada. So lots of different options.
Yes, I was going to say we had so much fun doing that 7-night Mexican Riviera all those years ago. And we have somebody already asked a question. I know you mentioned it, but can we get a ship out here all the time? Would love year-round cruises. I hope more cruises come back to San Diego. Maybe in the future, but this is what we got right now.
Yep. I would say it's a possibility. I know, like you kind of talked about other cruise lines. I'm pretty sure Royal just announced they're going to have one full-time from San Diego or Los Angeles, somewhere on the West Coast. So Disney may follow suit. We'll have to see. By 2031, there's going to be something like 13 Disney ships. So maybe we'll see.
Right. I know lots of options, and I'm very curious to see how the fleet grows. I'm sure that they can't have all 13 sailing from Port Canaveral and Fort Lauderdale. So come on, Disney. And let's see, where's that other question? You mentioned the rockiness of the water. Is seasickness bad? Is it cold? How's the weather this time of year from San Diego?
So San Diego is very temperate, is what I would say. Like, it doesn't typically get colder than like 50, but it also doesn't typically get warmer than like 75 or maybe 80. So it's definitely not going to be as hot as like some of your Bahamian cruises. But it could be a little bit chilly. I won't lie. When we were on our cruise that left from San Diego, the pools are heated, of course, on the ship. So that was okay. But like when we were in port, we didn't do anything that was like a beach day because it was just, I think it was like 65 most of the days we were at port. So it was a little bit cooler than like what your average Caribbean cruise would be for sure.
Yeah. And I was going to say, even the Mexican Riviera cruises, the later you get into the closer you get to summer, the warmer it's going to be. But I think that's also a great opportunity to do some different types of excursions, maybe your cultural sightseeing, cooking classes, lots of great options in there. And then someone's asking, so is the Magic not leaving out of Galveston anymore?
I guess probably. I didn't actually look at that, but that is typically when they do their Galveston cruises. So for 2026, it must not be. But yeah, I can go back and look at that because that's one thing I hadn't considered.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know the Magic seems to be going all over the place. Yeah. She is a world traveler.
I think the Magic is the one that they kind of just like put wherever, that's the one that travels the most for sure. So
yes. Oh my gosh. And we do have this question. I knew we were gonna get it. Should I do the Magic or the Wonder? They're so similar.
Yes. So the Magic and the Wonder are both, they're sister ships. They're both the smaller ships in the fleet. They're very, very similar. So in this case, I would say look at the dates. If there's a certain date that, works out much better for you, I don't think you can go wrong with either ship. They're both wonderful. The Magic has Rapunzel's Royal Table and the Rapunzel stage show. So if you happen to have like a huge Rapunzel fan in your life, you might choose it for that. And then the Wonder has Tiana's Palace, I believe it's called, for the restaurant, one of the restaurants. So it's hard to choose, but they're both very similar. You can't go wrong with either one, honestly, for sure.
Yes, I was going to say there are a reason that those are the classic ships. And I always like to say that, like, if we didn't have those ships, we would have nothing else in the Disney Cruise Line fleet. There's a reason that so many of the returning Disney cruisers love going back to those ships. So you cannot go wrong. And let's talk about getting to San Diego.
Yeah. So like I mentioned before, San Diego International is the airport that you would fly into most likely. It's very close to the port. It's only about 10 minutes away if you're driving. DCL does offer shuttle transfers from the port. They start those around 11 a.m. on your embarkation day. And those are $18 per person per way. So if you want round trip transfers to the port and then also back to the airport when you leave the ship, that would be $36 per person. Another very easy way, they have tons of taxis, Uber or Lyft is very accessible, easy to use there. And then you could also do something like a rental car if you're planning to stay, or if you come in early, you're going to stay for a few days before your cruise. or even there's private transfer options as well. So you've got tons of ways to get to the port. And like I said, it's very close from the airport to the port. So it's pretty inexpensive no matter which way you do it, which is nice. So
Yeah, so true. I know a lot of people think when they're flying into Orlando that the cruise terminal is going to be right there, but I mean it
right,
can be an hour drive out
right.
there, and something a lot of people do not factor in. Someone's asking, how do you book the transfers? Can I just show up that day?
No, so the transfers do have to be added before your cruise. Usually they cut them off 3 days beforehand. And your travel agent can do it for you, or if you're just booked by yourself, you can call the Disney Cruise Line phone number and they can add those on for you.
Yes, and I see some other great questions coming in. We are going to be getting to some of these very soon, so stay tuned on that. Let's talk about arriving at the port. A little bit of difference, but still lots of similarities
Yeah.
compared to other Disney Cruise Line ports.
Yeah. So if you've ever cruised Disney before, the terminal is pretty similar. The one thing that is different is there's going to be a lot of people walking to the port, actually, which you don't see in a lot of the other ports.
Walking to
Because
the port.
Yes, because we'll get to it a little bit later, but there are several hotels that are like directly across the street from the port. Um, so you can literally just walk outside your hotel, walk across the street, and you're at the port. So that's very nice. It's very convenient. Um, and like I said before, there's only 2 cruise terminals. I believe it's called Pier B, is what Disney typically cruises from, but it's not like a Disney designed terminal. So, like Port Canaveral has their specific Disney terminal that has all the Disney decorations and everything. It's the Disney terminal. And Fort Lauderdale is the same way because they just built their own terminal there. Um, but San Diego's not like that. So the terminal is still perfectly nice. It just doesn't have as much Disney theming, I guess you could say, as some of the other port cruise terminals do. So like some of the other cruise terminals, when we were there, they had lines outside the terminal based on your port arrival time. So there was like a line for the 11 o'clock port arrival time, a line for the 12 o'clock port arrival time. And I think they do that because so many people just walk there. I think a lot of people tend to show up before their actual port arrival time. So they do kind of corral you outside if you show up early. And then, as you can see, I said there, it's very similar to other cruise terminals. It's just a little bit less crowded, especially because since you do have the Magic and the Wonder, that's going to be less passengers that you would have on some of the other cruise ships. So there's just going to be less people in general, I think.
Such a good point.
Mhm.
Yes, that the ships, they are more intimate, which is awesome. The spaces all feel so much bigger. I mean, when we sailed on the Magic last year, after sailing on the Fantasy and the Wish previously in the year, it just felt awesome to be in these spaces that weren't just huge, 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 and with so much less people. And for those who don't know, could you just quickly explain port arrival time and what that is and why that's important here?
So when you do your online check-in, which if you've never cruised before, that's 30 days before your sail date, you will, at the very end, you will pick what they call a port arrival time. And that is just assigning you a time to arrive to the port to start your security check-in, all that kind of thing. So they do that to stagger people. So not everyone is showing up at the port at the same time. So all the port arrival times are like 15-minute increments. So you might have 11 to 11:15, 11:15 to 11:30. And you just pick one of those, and then that's just the time that you are supposed to arrive at the port.
It's easy as that. Your staterooms typically aren't going to be ready until 1:30, 2:30 in the afternoon. So, you don't need to rush to get on. And I think we're going to be talking about hotels coming up. So I will save some of these questions. But overall, it seems like San Diego, pretty easy to
Pretty
navigate.
simple, yeah. So parking, this is kind of a big one because a lot of people that live in California will drive to the port. So there's a lot of people that need to park there. There is no parking directly at the port. The Port of San Diego has an excellent website where they list out all the options that you have of where you can park. And it's like very complete, like links, exactly what's offered at each parking facility. So it's very great. Two of the more popular options, which I put on here, is called, the first one is Ace Parking. So this is going to have locations for Wyndham, and then they have Brick North and Brick South. So these these are all directly in the hotels that are across the street. So they're not like a typical parking lot. It's more like a parking garage. So these are very popular, and they do like sell out for these parking spaces. That's why I put reservations highly recommended. And then another popular one is the San Diego Park Shuttle and Fly. This is just like a parking lot, more like a parking lot type situation. But they do have a 24/7 shuttle that takes you from the parking lot to the cruise terminal. So for this Ace Parking, this would be one that you would walk from the parking directly to the cruise terminal. And then this other one would be one you would take a shuttle. And then they do have other options as well. These are just some of the more popular ones that I know of.
Got it. Good to know. And question for you on the one that's a shuttle. So if you have, let's say you have an 11:30 port arrival time, is that something where you would, drop your stuff off, maybe your family off with all the luggage at the terminal, go park, and then shuttle back and meet them?
Yeah. So yeah, actually for that San Diego Park Shuttle and Fly, they have right on their website, we recommend dropping off all your passengers and your luggage, and then just having one person take the car to the parking location and dropping it off and riding the shuttle back. So yes, you can drop off passengers and luggage at the terminal before you take your car to whatever parking location you have.
Got it. Good to know. I love how organized this port seems to be. When I saw no parking, I was like, what do you mean they have no parking? But they make it so easy to park if that's
Yeah.
your chosen mode of transportation. And hotels, what
Yeah.
lots of people seem to be asking about.
Yeah. So, like I said, there's 3 that are directly across the street. You can book what they call like a bay view room, and you can see the ships come in, which is super fun, especially if you got little kids. They get so excited. So that the 3 are the Wyndham Bayside, the Spring Hill Suites / Residence Inn, which is technically 2 separate hotels, but they're in the same building, so it's basically the same. And then the Intercontinental San Diego. So any of those 3, if you go do a search in a Facebook group for hotels in San Diego, pretty much everybody's going to be recommending one of these 3 because it's just so easy. I mean, you can't get much easier than, walking across the street to get to your ship. So a couple of other recommendations though. So Gaslamp Quarter is an area of San Diego that just has tons of shopping and restaurants and activities and things to do. So that's a great place if you want to stay, a few days beforehand or a few days after. And then Hotel Del Coronado is just a historic hotel out kind of on a like peninsula. So it's really beautiful. It has its own beach. So that's just like another nice, really nice location as well.
My gosh, so many good options. And are hotels something that you can help book? I know you can do the cruise, right? You can do the transfers with Disney, airfare, hotels.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody that is my client, I will absolutely help with hotels if you want me to. Yeah, that's definitely something I can assist with for sure.
Yes. So Nancy, you should be good to go. I'm going to get the link to Megan's page back up on screen for the DCL community site. And I'm actually going to pop this in the comments for you guys as well. So you guys can start planning. But I love how many options there are. I know this is definitely something we always say to fly in the day before, and then people are like, oh, wait, what do I do once I get there?
Yeah.
So that's a great option. And I think we're going to talk about Debarkation. I knew you had it on here. Amazing.
So I will say the Debarkation, I think, was a little more, for how organized the rest of it seemed, the Debarkation did seem like there would be a little bit room for improvement. We had to wait probably close to an hour on our Debarkation day. And some of that was because I think they didn't have enough agents, like passport control agents. So when we cruised, they didn't have any of the like automatic like facial recognition or anything like that. They had people that were like physically checking everyone's passports. So it did take a little bit longer just because of that. But it still wasn't terrible. And I think some of that can just vary a little bit too. We might have just had, a worse day than what it typically is. So I don't think it's that bad. So DCL, their earliest recommended flight time is 11:15 a.m. Again, you're so close to the airport that you can get out of there pretty early if you need to. So that's a nice perk as well for this one.
I know lots of people want to get out right away, but it also seems like there's so much to do in San Diego that that might be a good way to explore other parts of the city. I know some people are saying Marina District, Little Italy are some great options. Gosh, I need to get myself out to San Diego. Never gotten off before 10 a.m. Yeah, it doesn't seem like Debarkation is the most favorite part of the trip in general, but then you add in a little bit of wait time here.
Like I
And
said,
go
sorry, go ahead. Our embarkation was very smooth. It was very seamless, but then debarkation was just a little bit more chaotic, it seemed. So, yeah.
I will say, in my experience, and take this with a grain of salt, it seems like the ports where Disney is there 12 months out of the year,
Yes.
it's like butter.
Yeah.
But the ports where things might be a little bit new or they're only seasonal, I know my family did a Hawaiian cruise, and Disney's only there twice a year, so there was a lot of question marks from a lot of people, and I think that's another great reason to have a travel advisor like Megan in your pocket, because she can prep you for all this ahead of time. She can tell you exactly how you're going to navigate through, what you need to have ready, because the last thing you want is to get up to the custom desk and be like, shoot, I needed my passport out. I think I packed that. And that's the last thing you want. Oh my goodness. And someone's asking, what are these? I'm guessing they mean the luggage tags.
Yes. So this is like the saddest thing you ever get on your Disney cruise. This is the luggage tags they give you the night before you get off the ship. And these are coded to kind of like what time they call you to get off the ship. So the reverse side has like place to fill out your name and all that stuff. But they'll say, okay, everyone with Minnie tags, Mickey tags, and Pluto tags, you are now free to leave the ship. So it usually goes pretty quick. But that's just an example of the little tags you get to put on your luggage before you leave.
Oh man, when you walk into your stateroom and the bed's all nicely made with those laid out, just like a dagger. Oh my gosh, it's so sad. And pre and post cruise stay, I'm so glad that you have this in here to help kind of round out the trip, especially for some of the shorter itineraries.
Yeah, because, like most of the itineraries from San Diego are only 3 or 4 nights. So, if you have like a week vacation that you want to do, that definitely gives you a ton of time to explore the area. And there is so much to do. Obviously, San Diego Zoo is world famous. You could do that for 2 whole days, probably, if you wanted to. Balboa Park, like they have a Legoland I think it's about 30 or 45 minutes outside the city. La Jolla Beach, they have sea lions there pretty much year round. USS Midway is a retired aircraft carrier that you can tour. Belmont Park is kind of like an old school amusement park. It's got like a pier. And then Disneyland, of course. So Disneyland is about 2 hours from San Diego. So it's definitely an option to add that on to your cruise. If you're going to do that, I would definitely recommend getting a car to drive up there. They do have like an Amtrak train that you can take, but it's not quite as convenient as having your own car, I don't think. But you could still do it if you wanted to. So
is the Amtrak station close to the port, close to the airport, kind of?
If I'm remembering correctly, I do think it is walking distance to the port. Okay. I would have to double check on that, but I'm pretty sure that it is.
Yes. So I was going to say, giving people options is good, but I think to have the freedom, and I know next to nothing about the park, so I'm the last person to ask about Disneyland, but I feel like having the flexibility to be able to bop around and do your own thing, go off property if you want to stay for a couple of days and get groceries somewhere to bring them back. Yeah. Having that freedom to rent a car or having that freedom once you rent a car would definitely be helpful. And another question about weather. We got that one. More ships to the West Coast. Yes, agreed. It seems like everybody wants these ships coming to the West Coast. And talk to me a little bit about pricing, because I know there's a lot of East Coasters. There's a lot of we're Midwesterners who either way, we have to get on a plane. It's not like we're in Florida and can just pop over to the cruise port. So how do you kind of frame looking at the cruise as a whole as an investment for a vacation. You
Mhm.
know, is it worth it to fly to San Diego where the cruise itself might be a little bit cheaper, but the flights might be? How do you kind of work through that with your clients?
So for me personally, I don't find, especially nowadays, that flights going to San Diego are that much more expensive than going to like Orlando or Fort Lauderdale. We've got a family of 5, so they're going to be expensive no matter what.
Yeah,
And I do think that since the cruises are a little bit shorter, that I think it's worth it to add a few days on, because you're already spending the money to go out there. So I think it makes sense to do some of the things like you said, San Diego, it's a beautiful city. There's so much to do. Um, so it kind of, I wouldn't say it's a waste to not do anything else, but you're already there. So if you can, it definitely makes sense to add a few things on as well.
agreed. And I knew this question was gonna come up from Lizzie. Is there a land and sea package?
No, Disney doesn't really, they don't do land and sea packages anymore. It's not even like you can't even connect the reservations in the Disney system. They're 2 separate reservations, but that's something that I can definitely help with the transfers, getting from one place to another in terms of between San Diego and Disneyland. I plan Disneyland as well. Disneyland is it's a much easier park, or there's 2 parks, but the park system as a whole is much easier than Disney World. It's just more relaxed. A lot of the people that go to Disneyland are annual pass holders. So since they're there all the time, I think there's just not the craziness of Disney World like Disney World can be. Um, so it's a really fun time to go to Disneyland with it, because then you get double dose of Disney, which there can't be anything better, of course. So
So
yeah, I
true.
can help plan all of that. So
Yes, and I was gonna say, if you really wanna do the full Disney thing, fly in, go to Disneyland, do the cruise, and then kinda do a Disneyland sandwich, just do Disneyland
oh,
everywhere.
yes,
Let's just go for it, right? If we're flying all
right.
the way up to
I
California,
agree.
right?
Mhm.
And there was another question. Where did it go? Um, no. Oh, debarkation. How long does it take? That was it. It can vary. It
It
can
can
vary.
vary. Like I said, it took us about an hour. I do think, ours wasn't necessarily the norm, but I think it's like Fort Lauderdale, we were off, we were through in like 10 minutes. So I think it definitely does take a little bit longer than like Port Canaveral or Fort Lauderdale, but still it's not, it's nothing crazy. So
Yes. And then Stacy asked, would you do a private transfer to Disney or would you rent a car?
I would rent a car. Private transfer is going to be very expensive, because, like I said, it's about at least an hour and a half, probably closer to 2 hours from San Diego to Disneyland. So, private transfer is going to be pretty pricey, and it's an easy drive. So, my personal recommendation would be to rent a car.
And then would you fly out of LAX then? Or
There's no. So LAX is huge, and the traffic around LAX can be absolutely insane. Um, so there's John Wayne, which is SNA. So San Diego is SAN, and John Wayne is SNA. So
not
it's a little bit
confusing at all.
confusing, but
Yeah.
so there's Long Beach, there's John Wayne, and then there's another one. Which one is it? Well, anyway, there's like 3 smaller airports that are actually closer to Disneyland than LAX is. LAX is actually not that close to Disneyland. It's about half an hour.
Okay.
So I would recommend one of the smaller airports, because they are so much easier to get in and out of than LAX is. So that would be
Okay.
my recommendation for sure.
See, that's how you know you're working with a pro. I mentioned airport, and she's like, "Actually, no.
Yeah.
Slightly shift over." I love that so much. And oh my gosh, okay, we went through that so fast. We do have a question from May. First time cruiser, how does the luggage work? What gets checked in and what can we walk in with?
So anything that like an airline would consider a carry-on bag, you can take that on the ship and carry it around yourself. If it's bigger than that, if it's something that would typically be like a checked luggage, for an airline, they're going to want you to basically leave that at the curb with the porters. So There's going to be people lined up outside the ship or outside the cruise terminal. Typically, they have kind of like identifying outfits on, and they will help you with your luggage. They will take your bags. They will, then they take them onto like these huge luggage racks and take them onto the ship. So you do not have to, tote around your huge luggage on the ship before your stateroom gets ready. They will take it on the ship and deliver it to your stateroom for you. So it's very easy.
Yes, you do not want to be dragging that suitcase around as you're trying to explore,
Right.
going through the buffet. That is the last thing you want.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the only other thing to mention is with liquids, it's a little bit
Oh, yeah.
different with Disney compared to the airport, right? Because with that one,
Right.
you wouldn't check.
Right. So if you are bringing on anything like a case of water, pop, not soda, pop, because I'm from the Midwest,
Yes.
or even like beer or wine, that needs to be packed in your checked luggage or in your carry-on, not in your checked luggage. So you can bring separate bags for that in terms of carry-ons, but you do need to bring any liquids in your carry-on and take it with you on the ship. Do not leave it in your checked luggage.
Yes. Toothpaste, fine to check. But if you're
Right.
bringing a whole case of water or your favorite energy drink or
Right.
whatever you're doing, that has to be factory sealed and it needs
Mhm.
to be carried on the ship, which again, you don't necessarily want to be lugging around. Well, I
Right.
know we thought we were going to bring enough wine for a big group of us on board, and then we ended up carrying it around for 2 hours before the room was ready.
Right.
Did not make that mistake again. Lots of people were driving to San Diego from Long Beach area. So
Mhm.
excited. First time cruiser. Yay. This is so exciting. Lots of people saying thank you. So I'm so glad that so many people have enjoyed this. It seems like there's
Yeah.
lots of buzz around San Diego.
Mhm.
And as far as adult activities, I would say reach out to Megan, depending on exactly what you like to do. The
Right.
recommendation is going to be different because what I like to do on vacation is probably going to be different than you or anybody else.
Mhm.
So definitely reach out to Megan. That's the link to her page on the DCL community site. Again, her planning services are free. So if you're trying to think about you need a last minute spring break trip, you want to start planning for next year, reach out to her, have those conversations now. Again, she can help plan, different parts of it. If you're considering parks, if you're considering the cruise line, maybe another cruise line, there's lots of options here. And she's got the experience to help take that stress off of your shoulders so that you
That's
can
right.
focus on enjoying your vacation. And speaking of spring break, I know that's coming up for a lot of people. Does your family have any fun plans? Are we doing anything for spring break this year?
We're going to Disneyland Paris. Yes.
Woo!
And
Yay!
we're kind of hopping around Europe. So we're starting at Disneyland Paris, and then we're heading to Madrid, and then we're going back north to Amsterdam, where they have like the tulip fields, the
Yes.
tulip
Oh my
festival.
gosh, beautiful.
So we're
Oh,
really excited. But yeah, I'm very
oh my,
excited about Disneyland Paris. So we will see
I'm
how that.
excited for you. Okay, if anybody wants a Disneyland Paris one of these, let me know so that we can add it to the list because I would love that. I mean, Europe and Disney in one.
I
Say
mean,
less.
they have cruises that leave from Europe as well, so you can always combine those two things too.
Gosh, so true. Oh my gosh, match made in heaven.
Mhm.
Oh, well, Megan, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Again, if you guys have any questions or you want to start planning your Disney vacation, reach out to Megan. She is here to help. And we will see all y'all on board real soon. Bye, guys.
Bye.